Hello and welcome once again to MGTracey. Now today I'm going to take you through step-by-step setting up your Layzspa. So here's a few things you need to make sure you've got before we get cracking with the installation. So you're going to want a nice flat area. I've got some AstroTurf here and I've gone over this with a tooth comb to make sure there's nothing sharp. I've had some previous fatalities with inflatable hot tubs because there was a nail or a screw or a very sharp stone underneath, so make sure that area is clear. You're going to need something like this which gives you a little bit of extra protection, like a jigsaw you put together. I'll do that in a minute. That also helps insulate, save you losing some of the power. You're going to want an outdoor socket, and that really needs to be connected to a circuit breaker on your main fuse board. The spas do have their own circuit breaker, but they're outdoors, you're mixing electricity and water, so you've got to be really careful. I've got quite a tub here, my previous hot tub, of all my sieves and chemicals, but if this is your first time, you're going to need something like this, which is a starter kit, which gives you everything you need. You'll find some of the chemicals you never use, some of them you run out of quite quickly, but it'll help you get the hang of it. Links to all this stuff is in my description box below, and don't forget to subscribe. Right, let's get this main box open and have a stab at the laying out the jigsaw pieces as well. So the brown protective layer just slips off. There's lots of Layzspas, all sorts of prices, and very similar brands. Again, I'll put some of my favourite links below. This time I've gone for the Hollywood 6. Now, if it says your hot tub will take 6, it means you'll just about get 4 in. If your hot tub says it's going to take 4 people, you're just about going to get 2 people in there. And what you'll see with these sort of pictures is many of them must be photoshopped because there's nowhere for people's legs in some of the photos. Now, I went for the Hollywood 6 because it has interior and exterior lighting built in. You've got nice little cushion bits here, and it's a reasonable price, so it's a good starter. But for me, really, you've got this colour changing thing, which is the real difference. A lot of them say they have the freeze shield, which means that if it's very cold or in the winter, it'll start itself up. But honestly, the amount of power you're going to use trying to keep this on in the winter, don't even think about it. Another tip is when you're opening these boxes, be really careful, because obviously it's very easy to go a bit too deep and end up cutting something important inside, so open with extreme care. So I know from feedback on my previous videos that when people start to see this, it all looks a bit daunting, because there's a lot of bits to this, and the first time you put together, you will need my help, I think, with this video, but it's not too bad. Let's do it step by step and get you in your spa as soon as possible. Right, these bits here are to do with the lid, which you use the main pump to blow up. You have a lot of extras. You can normally find those in the store. The useful ones I'll put below as links. And you'll get a sign. Now, although it seems a bit daft to have a sign that says do not dive, the most important thing, if this is the first time you have got a hot tub in your garden somewhere and any children have access, is to make sure this thing is secure at night and kids cannot fall in. It sounds ridiculous, but there's some awful stories. Be methodical, make sure you've always got the lid firmly secured, or that kids cannot get near a hot tub unsupervised. Inside the first little box here is how the lighting is going to work, and it has a separate plug. So again, remember, you're going to need 2 exterior sockets if you're going to have this model, one that's going to power the pump and heating and one that's going to power the LEDs. You've also got a remote, and this model has a little bit on the side where you can drop the remote, but from what other people have said, this isn't waterproof, so I think you're going to need to keep this in the dry somewhere. So this model comes with little pillows, and actually that's quite a nice thing to have if you want to almost snooze in your hot tub. Before we install all these lights, just make sure that they work. There we go, so that's fine. You're now faced with 2 more boxes. Again, careful how you open this. And these are heavy. You might find this is a 2-person job. This is obviously the main hot tub. In here, that's where some of the filter and chemical bits go, and then you can see the hot tub power there that does the inflation, heating, bubbles, etc. So order, we're going to get our jigsaw done. We're going to inflate the main unit. We're then going to inflate the lid. We're going to turn over the main unit and install the lights, and then finally we're going to connect up the water and the heater, and then the really long job, which is filling it up with water. That takes about 4 years with the hose, and then a day or so for it to heat up. Right, let's get cracking with the next phase. Now, somebody once commented this is the most difficult 9-piece jigsaw in the world, so you might spend a bit of time on this. You should have a little square bit as well, which is what the pump's going to sit on to help that insulate that. But the other important bit that I keep forgetting is make sure this is in the actual place you want the hot tub. You know, once you've started doing this and filled it with water, you cannot move it. So you need to make sure you can get out safely, you can get out the door to the rest of the garden. Really have a bit of a think about it before you fill up the pool and you're committed to that space for the summer. Right, so we just got that out, and now it's just a question of removing some of the bubble wrap and opening up the tub, positioning it roughly where these pipes are obviously going to connect to the pump, so they need to be pointing where the pump is going to go. So in the top of the cardboard, there's nothing else underneath here. You've just got this, and this is where your chemicals go. So you can put 1 or 2 tablets in there, sort of chlorine and multi-purpose tablets, and that just goes in, and then you lock it, and that fits into the side of the pool. And as the water is going through the pump, it keeps the water in relatively good position, so you won't have too much topping up of chemicals to do. Now, in the top of the pump box, you're going to find these. This long tube is really used just for inflation, and you've also got some other bits and pieces that you need from time to time. Maybe keep one of these boxes, because there's lots of bits you won't need all the time, or at all, you would thought, when you start off. You may be able to need to find those later on, so make sure you've got somewhere you can lay your hands on all these bits and pieces on, or even if you need to top it up, the air, you've got to get hold of this little pipe again to be able to do it. On this model, it's not automatic. On some of the really expensive ones, where this unit is built into the sidewall, then it sort of tops itself up automatically. But at the moment, they are about double the price, so that's a great feature, but probably not worth paying twice as much for. Sitting on the bottom here is your filter. This is going to screw into the side of the unit with like a toilet rolly filter inside that filters out hairs and bits and pieces of bugs when the unit is running, so we'll take that one out. So inside there is your first filter. You're going to need quite a few of those. You can rinse them out if you do it every 2 or 3 days, but after a while they just get very clogged up, and you will need to replace them. So almost after you've got in, you need to order a pack of spare filters. Again, links below in my description box. Here is your main unit, so be very careful here. You'll find you've got little washers in here. If you lose any of those, you'll find you get leaks, so make sure that this can just come out. Make sure that you look after that and it's in there, it's not dropped on the floor. This unit's been around quite a while, this design, and this is obviously bubbles. These are heat and recirculation things. This one up and down the temperature, on off, lock, and that one is timer. Now some of these are linked to the internet, some are not. It's an okay feature to have, I suppose, if you're travelling home and you've got the hot tub running at a background temperature of 30 and you want it at 40 by the time you get home, then to be able to turn it on via the internet is useful. So if that's something you want, make sure you're buying a hot tub that has internet connectivity. This is your lead, and you can see you've got a fairly chunky power breaker there as well, but you do need one in the house as well to use this sort of equipment. Remember, water and electricity can be somewhat dangerous. When you're using the hot tub, don't have this cable coiled up with the tags that it comes with initially. Try and spread it out as much as possible. Coiled AC cables have a nasty habit of getting rather warm. Okay, now this pipe here is just to empty it. The two blue ones are water going in and out to the pump through the filters. This big one is where you will start pushing the air for the bubbles, and this one here is where you blow it up from. So you'll find it comes like this initially. You just have a hole on that, screw this bit in, and then you've got your pipe. We're going to connect to the air bit there to blow this up, and you'll want this little bit on, and then you can just push that in there, ready to go. And it has got a valve on it, but when you've got it to the correct pressure, then you're just going to put this dust cap back on there afterwards. So now we just need to connect this to the pump, turn the pump on and start blowing it up. It isn't going to take too long, and you want it to be firm, but obviously don't overinflate. If this is the first time we've done it and you do want to be careful you don't overinflate, then you screw that bit into the blower and the pipe in there, and it's got like an escape valve here so that you can't overinflate it. But for me, it takes far too long to do it that way. So I know, having had a few of these, you want it just firm. So that'll be fine for me just to connect it up direct. Let's start inflating. When the circuit breaker comes, you may need to push the orange button here so the red light comes on to turn on power to your pump. Just hold this button to turn it on. And then really, we're just going to push the air bit, and that will start to inflate the hot tub. Okay, we are getting there, and you just want this bit firm enough that you can almost sit on as you get into the pool. So that's how that should be. And then I've just turned it off, and then we're going to unscrew that, and we're going to unplug that valve and just screw the top back on that one. So when you come to let it down, this is what you're going to undo. It's either a valve or you can release the whole thing, depending on how fast you want to let the air out. And remember, these bits just turn this way to unlink. And remember, make sure you've kept your little washer in each of these before you now attach it in a moment to the main pole, because you will get a leak if they're not there. Our next little task is to flip this upside down, making sure there's nothing sharp. You're going to put it on, and is put in that LED strip and tuck it in all the bottom. It will then light the inside and the outside. Now I'm going to put the LED strip through. Now this isn't an easy job, and you've got to thread it underneath these bits, so the LEDs are on the clear bit. You've even got to go underneath this vent here, so this isn't easy. You've got to get it all the way around. You need to end up with the plug being near the pump so that you can now plug in those lights as well. You don't want to end up with the lead on the opposite side of the hot tub, because you want to be able to plug it in. Right, just grin and bear it, get this bit done. One more thing I just realised, make sure as you're threading this through that you can see the LEDs there. They need to be down, obviously. Otherwise, what we're going to do is you're going to be effectively trying to light the ground. So those should be clear on the top, so that the light is going through this panel here to light the inside and the outside of your hot tub. The next bit we need to inflate is the insulated lid. So you'll find you've got a cover like this that has a sort of a skirt inside it. The lid itself doesn't inflate, and then another inflatable. Now what I find is if you fully inflate that and try and get in there, it's very hard. So partially inflate it, get it in there, and then just finish it inflating when it's in position, and you'll find that a lot easier. So we're just using the same system we did to blow the main unit up. On the end of the pipe, you need to unscrew this bit, and on the bit that's on the elastic, screw that bit in, and then you'll find that fits in there neatly to inflate the lid cover. So with it partially inflated, fit it under this lid all the way around and then finish the inflation. Once again, don't overinflate. This is only for insulation. It's not structural, so just blow it up so it has a little bit of resistance when you push your finger against it. So these are the attachments that fit to the lid, and you just take your bubble wrap off for this. And these are what I was talking about earlier. These always need to be firmly in place to give you a tight seal on the top to prevent an accident of a child falling in. So now we're all ready to start connecting up the machine to the hot tub. This is just spare. Just pull this off. You don't need that one unless you're storing it. As I said before, make sure you've got your washers. And then there's a very delicate task of screwing these three on and gently manoeuvring the hot tub to get it in position where they will screw in snug, watertight and happily without any particular pressure on anything. And then once we've done that, we are pretty much ready to start putting the water in. So we're getting towards the end of the project now, thank heavens. These are the chlorine tablets. Again, I'll put the links below for you to get those. If you've got your starter kit, you should get those. And I think probably one is enough of those. Once you've touched these, you're going to need to wash your hands. And then this unit then just locks back over it. Okay, this one with the filter in, just nestle that down, screw that tight to hold it, and then both of these then just screw to the inside of the hot tub, this one at the top and the filter on the bottom. Right, once you've done that, that's what they should look like. And then regarding the filling, on the opposite side you will find you have a minimum and a maximum. I find you will definitely want the maximum. Now, as you may guess, this is going to take many hours, so I guess probably 3 or 4 hours to fill up this size of hot tub. Once the water is above the level of the bottom, the filter bit there, then you can turn the pump on and start heating the water, because again, the first heat of water to get it up to 30, mid-30s is going to take probably 10 hours, something like that. It takes a long time. And then when using it, I tend to leave it ticking over at 30, and a few hours before you want to get into it, you can then turn it up to 40, 38, 40, whichever is your preferred temperature. And it won't take that long to do the rest of the heating. But to get it from UK ambient to 30, it's a big job. I suggest you do not look at your electricity meter while this is happening, unless you have a nearby ambulance with you in case of cardiac arrest. This is the exciting bit. It's filling up nicely, which is great. Now, the first thing we need to do, and I'll do a follow-up video of maintaining all the correct chemical levels, but you need to blitz the system and put in quite a lot of chlorine. So I'm going to put in 3 heaped tablespoons of these sort of chlorine granules. Looks a bit like sort of table salt, which is too much for you to get in with that level. But what this will do, kill any bugs in the filter, in the pump itself, on the inside. So that's going to kill anything and make sure there's nothing nasty lurking in your hot tub. And if you leave the lid off, the chlorine will gradually evaporate. It obviously doesn't have a particularly nice smell. It's the smell that you smell when you're in a swimming pool. And I'll show you by dipping it in the next video when it's at the right level that you can get in. It normally takes about 10, 12 hours for this very high level of chlorine to go into the atmosphere, and then you'll be ready to use the spa. And because it's going to take that long to heat up anyway, it's not going to waste any time or stop you getting in your hot tub sooner than you could. So it's 3 of these, which is about 15 grams. And when we get it moving in a minute, the pump will move that all around and make sure we disinfect all of the inside. So the water's reached over the filter. I've turned that on. Here I've put heat, and that one is just showing the water is circulating. So if you just wanted to have the filter on of any heat, it's that. I've got that set to centigrade. You can just touch here and swap that to Fahrenheit if you want to. So that's on 18, and there's a big hard slog now, particularly while it's still being filled, to get that to 30. So once the water's reached the required level, then even if it's a nice day, get the insulated cover on while the unit is heating up. This has been on an hour and it's only moved from 18 to 19 centigrade. Just double check here, unlock it, and just make sure you've got this on the maximum by putting that up there. It needs to be right on 40 to give it the best chance of heating up as quickly as possible. So it's the next day, and it took a good 12 hours to get that up to 38 degrees, but it's all ready to go. I'm just going to check the water now with the dip and see if we need to make any adjustments, as we put quite a lot of chlorine in for the first use. You're going to need something like this. There's different versions of these, but they multi-test for different things. Dip them in 2 seconds, shake them off 2 seconds, and see how they compare to the test on the side. And that will allow you to know if you need to put any pH plus or minus defoamer or any more chlorine in. So we've definitely got enough chlorine. The alkalinity is a bit low, so I'm going to have to put some pH plus, I think, in there. Not much though of that. It seems to be okay. So in the next video I'll show you the daily care regime and also what this looks like when it's all turned on in the dark and we have all the lights working. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. This is Paul from London. I shall see you in the next video. So on a nice hot summer's day, I'm about to have the first dip in the hot tub. Cheerio. Who wouldn't want this on a nice day?